All right, today we're jumping into one of the world's most incredible spiritual practices, the Islamic holy month of Ramadan. We're going to go way beyond the basics to really understand what it is, how people observe it, and most importantly, why it means so much to so many.
And just to give you an idea of the sheer scale we're talking about, get this, nearly 2 billion Muslims across the entire globe observe Ramadan. That's almost a quarter of the world's population, all participating in this month of fasting and reflection. It's massive.
Okay, so let's get everyone on the same page. We're going to start with the fundamentals. What are the core rules, the basic definitions that really shape this holy month? Let's build that foundation first.
So at the very heart of Ramadan is this practice called Sawm. That's the Arabic word for the fast. And look, this is so much more than just skipping lunch. From the moment the sun comes up to the moment it sets, observers refrain from all food and drink. And yep, that includes water. But what's really key is that the fast goes beyond the physical. It's also about making a real effort to avoid bad habits, like gossiping or arguing. Now, you've probably noticed that Ramadan doesn't fall on the same dates every year. Well, that's because the Islamic calendar is lunar, not solar like the one most of the world uses. This means Ramadan actually shifts about 11 days earlier each year. And over the course of about 33 years, it cycles through all 4 seasons. So, you can imagine, fasting during short, cold winter days is a completely different experience than during those long, hot summer ones.
It's really important to remember that the fast is meant to be a spiritual exercise, not some kind of extreme physical hardship. Because of that, there are very clear exemptions. Anyone for whom fasting would be a bad idea, medically speaking, doesn't have to. This includes kids, the elderly, people who are sick or traveling, and of course, women who are pregnant or nursing.
Okay, so we've got the rules down. Now let's get into the daily rhythm of it all and see how this actually plays out. What does a typical day look and, feel like for someone who's fasting?
A day in Ramadan is basically framed by 2 really important meals. Before the sun is even a thought, there's suhoor. That's the pre-dawn meal that gives you energy for the day. Then, of course, you've got the fast itself, which lasts all day. That can be anywhere from 12 to 18 hours, depending on where you are in the world. And finally, at sunset comes Iftar, the meal that breaks the day's fast.
And Iftar isn't just any meal. There's this really beautiful tradition to how it starts. Most people follow the practice of the Prophet Muhammad and break their fast with a simple, natural sweetness of a few dates and a sip of water. It's this gentle way of reintroducing food to your body before you move on to a bigger meal.
So we've covered the what, the when, and the how. But that brings us to the biggest, most important question of all, right? What's the actual purpose here? Why go through this huge month-long act of discipline? What's the point?
And this is where we get to the real core of it all. Because Ramadan is about so much more than just not eating. So let's dive into the spiritual and personal goals that really drive this incredible practice.
One of the biggest goals of Ramadan is to cultivate something called taqwa. Now that's a really rich concept, but you can think of it as a state of God consciousness, or just deep mindfulness. It's this special kind of awareness that you develop through self-restraint, that feeling you get when you consciously choose your spiritual focus over your body's immediate wants.
The act of fasting is really all about proving that the spirit can master the body. I mean, think about it. Every single time a person feels that pang of hunger or thirst and chooses to keep going, they're exercising their willpower. They're reinforcing the idea that their spiritual commitment can actually override a physical impulse.
A really good way to think about it, in modern terms, is as a kind of spiritual detox. By just temporarily taking away the daily distractions of eating and drinking, you create space. It lets you clear out all the mental and spiritual clutter and really shift your focus inward towards prayer, reflection, and becoming a better person.
So let's just break down those core goals. First, building empathy. By actually feeling hunger and thirst, people get a very real understanding of what the less fortunate go through. Second, it's about spiritual focus, shifting away from everyday stuff. And third, it's about commemoration, honoring the special month when the first verses of the holy book, the Qur'an, were revealed to the Prophet Muhammad.
So, while a lot of this is super personal and internal, Ramadan is also incredibly social. So for our last section, let's look at how this month of discipline is also a huge time of coming together.
Yeah, far from being a time of isolation, Ramadan is so communal. The evenings are just filled with families and friends gathering to share that iftar meal together.
Mosques become these vibrant community hubs, hosting special nightly prayers called Taraweeh. It really strengthens bonds at every level, from your family to your local community, all the way up to feeling like you're part of this single global community sharing the exact same experience.
So if you had to boil this whole month down, the fasting, the prayer, the community, all of it, if you had to distill it down to one single central value, what would it be? Well, at its heart, the central value is
Gratitude. That's it. By intentionally giving up things that we totally take for granted, like a simple sip of water or a snack, the whole experience just rewires your perspective. It's designed to build this profound sense of thankfulness for all the blessings that are there every other day of the year.
And a month of discipline like this doesn't just end, no way. It culminates in a huge celebration called Eid al-Fitr, which means the Festival of Breaking the Fast. And it's a super joyous 3-day holiday filled with special prayers, amazing food, giving to charity, and spending time with family. It's just a wonderful, happy release after a month of incredible effort. And that kind of leaves us with one final thought. Regardless of your personal beliefs, the principles here are pretty universal. So it's worth asking yourself, how might a month of intentional focus, of giving up a simple comfort just to gain a little perspective, how might that change the way you see the everyday things you take for granted? Something to think about.